This is Emily Ratajkowski at Formula 1. This is Kylian Mbappé at Formula 1. And this is Jeff Bezos at Formula 1. You get the point. Formula 1 has a way of attracting the rich and famous. But how come people like me have gone to Formula 1 5 times and made it a yearly trip, and I've even done it on a tight budget? There were around 300,000 people going to the Austrian Grand Prix this year in 2025, I being one of them. In our estimates, there was about 1,000 VIP platinum tickets sold. So why do we think a Formula 1 weekend trip is so expensive? Well, it boils down to 3 areas: traditional media, social media, and just how expensive the sport actually is. If you go on traditional media, after every single race, you'll see something along the line of Timothée Chalamet was spotted at the paddock at Miami this year, or something along the line of this many billionaires was on yachts this year in the Monaco Bay. We get it. The rich and famous, they attend in a certain way. How is that news? How is that still news to this day? It can't be news.
Because it isn't.
It isn't. I think this falls under what's called provocative news. Something that you inspire to, and for that reason you go in and read about it, you click on it. So all this clickbait that traditional media is now producing is definitely not being helped by the unintentional clickbait that we do on social media. Now I'm pointing the finger at you, but mostly at me, because if I were to make a post, I would caption something like Austria Grand Prix 2025. The deal is, what you're not seeing in this photo is how where I am while this picture is being taken is at a place of limited food options, at a place where there's porta potties, at a place where there's no shade for the sun, to a point where people are hiding behind the shade of ambulances, who, by the way, gave that guy a free bottle of water. You're so far away from the rest of the track. You had to do a 2-kilometer hike in the Alps at 30 degrees plus. People were having heat strokes up and down the mountains all over. Because the truth is, the real Formula 1 experience for the not so rich and the not so famous, just like me and probably also you, is very different from what we see on social media or even traditional media. But of course, because Formula 1 is a very expensive sport in itself. To just become a Formula 1 driver, it is estimated that you need $5 to $10 million to be given a chance to sit in that seat. That is not including the cost of the car or anything of that, because that's covered by the team. But for you to sit in the seat, $5 to $10 million is a lot of money. The path for you to become a Formula 1 driver is long and twisted, and it starts early. And it is very, very expensive. You have to start all the way as a young kid, becoming very good at karting. So good, in fact, that you can progress to Formula 4, Formula 3, and then Formula 2. Each step of the way, jumping in cost an estimated $5 to $10 million. It is so expensive that the 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton's father worked a second job just to afford his karting career, and afterwards had to take in sponsors for this teenager to just push his career forward. So naturally, that leaves us with a conclusion that the sport in general is inaccessible, and so the viewing experience must also be, especially when you compare to something like soccer or football, where all you really need is a ball and suddenly you can play. There might be a reason why that is the most played sport in the entire world. This year at Silverstone, an 85-year-old man was let into the paddock of Alpine because his granddaughter posted a video on TikTok of him going. This creates 2 illusions. First of all, that tickets to Formula 1 is so expensive that an 85-year-old man would cry to get them, such as a teenager would cry to get first row tickets to Taylor Swift. And second of all, it sets up the expectations that you basically need to be invited by a team like Alpine to get that type of access. First of all, the type of pit access, yes, you need to be invited by a team. But just onto the course and seeing things, you don't need to get invited. You can buy tickets rather cheaply. I've been fortunate enough to attend 5 Formula 1 Grand Prix weekends. 2 in Belgium, 1 in Japan, 1 in Italy, and recently 1 in Austria. I have done all of this on a budget. I am not rich and I'm not famous, and you can do this as well. But before you buy the tickets, let me explain to you what actually happens during a Formula 1 weekend, because a lot more happens than just the race itself. In general, social media sets up the wrong expectations for what it's like going to a Formula 1 weekend. It sets up an expectations of luxury. It sets up the expectation that you might even have pit access or paddock access to go see racers and teams up close. Well, you won't. If you even want to just see the pit from the outside, that is a minimum of $1,000. If you want to be experiencing the paddock and getting lounge access, that's at least $15,000 at most races. Now, if you are fortunate enough that your daddy is rich and you do have the $15,000 ticket, well, congratulations, because you have unlocked a new parking area. Another thing you might be expecting is having a hotel close by. Well, don't. hotels is $1,000 a night in the close by areas, and as you go out, the prices of course decrease. In my experiences, if you want to do something budget, you're at least going to be 1 hour by car away from the main area. Let me take you through the Formula 1 experience from when you drive to park your car. When you go to park your car, you'll be directed by nice personnel into a grass field. Now, this grass field is most likely going to be about 1 hour away from your seat. Here you'll see the first jump scare of your trip, a porta potty. Now, whether it's raining or extremely hot outside, that thing is going to be uncomfortable, but don't worry, because you're going to have to use it at some point anyways. And there's going to be a massive line. As you journey towards your seat, you will not only go through the fan zone, but also the campground. Now, a lot of people get surprised to see that there is a massive amount of camp area to a regular race in Europe. But the deal is, this is a race festival. And if you consider the race festival, this next segment will make a lot more sense to you. As a camper, you get to sleep there from Thursday night, typically through Sunday and until Monday morning, where you have to pack up and leave. The campers are typically situated in different areas depending on how they arrive. So maybe there'll be a Danish camp, a Max Verstappen camp, a Red Bull camp, and whatever. But the important thing is that campers typically have the budget experience. Now, I've never gone camping myself. However, just going past them, I can tell you they are having an absolute blast. Just look at these guys. As you go in through the entrance and security, you'll be greeted with an F1 fan zone. In the F1 fan zone, there'll be a lot of experiences for you. There'll not only be a stage where they interview all the drivers and they do all sorts of games with them. The same goes for the other DJs in the other stages. But not only that, they also experience like bungee jumping or a Ferris wheel, or even just like trying to put in the tires, being a part of the pit crew, or the movie cars. This very car you're seeing right now was the car driven by Brad Pitt in the F1 movie. But there's a lot more to Formula 1 than just the race and the fan zone. There's also other races. So F1 drives on Sunday, Friday and Saturday. That's what we get order. However, on these days, Porsche GT is also racing in a lot of Europe. Formula 3 and Formula 2 is also racing. Now, depending on how far away your seat is from the main area, you might be a little bit screwed. Because here's the deal, food options vary a lot. You can be lucky and your seat is close to like a giant area where there's like food trucks essentially. But most likely what will happen is what happened to us in Austria about a month ago, where you go to your fixed seats and there'll be one food truck for everybody. One. And that one will A, have a huge line, B, be completely overpriced for quite horrible food, honestly. And the same goes for the drinks. We were lucky, there were 2 tents this year. And in Austria, because it's the Red Bull ring, you couldn't have normal soda, you could only have Red Bull drinks. So the closest you got to a Coca-Cola was a Red Bull cola. Even the bottled water was absolutely horrible. I don't know why. The water they had on tap, way better, and shout out to them for doing that. But the reality is, in like a Formula 1 weekend, you're not gonna have all these luxuries. It's much more a festival. And it especially makes sense going back to the campers. You have essentially the same level of amenities as a camper would if you went camping. In this case, the camping spot is just with a view that is quite amazing to incredible pieces of machinery going around a track really darn fast, okay? So if your mentality is that you are a camper going to a racing festival, you're gonna have a very good time. The whole turning point of this video and why you're even watching it in the first place is quite simple. You want to understand how much it costs to go to Formula 1. So let's talk money. Starting off at the budget. If this was an airline, you wouldn't have any checked-in luggage, you would barely even have a full seat to yourself. This is the bronze tier, and it's actually called bronze in Formula 1 tickets. At least it is in Belgium. Here is a map of the Belgium racetrack. As you can see, there are some dedicated areas to bronze, silver and gold. Bronze has a few catches with it, but it also has the very low price tag of €200 for 3 days. I know what you're thinking. That's a lot less than the luxury pricing that you may have thought just a couple of minutes ago when this video started. We usually book a hotel that is about 1 hour away by car. That means you have to get up a little bit earlier, but that's totally fine. The reason you have to get up very early though, especially on Sunday race day, is because with bronze, you have no fixed seats. You have to go in, bring your own chair, bring a blanket and essentially squat out. And also because you are in the bronze area, you are less likely to be in a nice corner where they drive a little bit slower. So you will only see the car racing with 300 kilometers per hour really freaking fast. I would say that the one major caveat to a bronze ticket is the fact that you have to get up extremely early. If you want a decent seat, you have to be there before everyone else. That means that some people arrive as early as 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning when they open the doors. And they will sprint in 2 kilometers, hills, rain, sun, no matter what it is, and get that one seat they scouted out.
It starts to look like a real festival.
When we were in Monza in Italy, they only opened the doors at 9 a.m. And already at 9 a.m. there were tens of thousands of people in line already there, just waiting to run in and secure themselves a spot. We were extremely fortunate on Sunday to get a spot in a turn where they drove slow enough that we could see the color of the helmet, so we could see who it was. If you don't care too much about getting the perfect spot, the bronze ticket is quite nice. That being said, getting up extremely early to securing a spot is too much of a hazard for me, and that leads us to the silver tier. I feel like the silver tier might be the sweet spot, because at the silver tier you get a fixed seat. Now, just having a fixed seat, meaning you don't have to get up at 4:30 in the morning. And it also means that that hotel that is a little bit further out becomes more feasible. Because if you can sleep till just 7 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock in the morning, and having a nice chill drive in there, knowing that you have a spot means that you don't stress, you have a way more calm time, you don't have to sleep way less hours, and most importantly, you get to enjoy the fan zone. To become a silver ticket holder, the prices in Belgium is $380 to $540. With a silver ticket, there still are a few caveats. You still have to be parking with all the bronze, meaning that you are quite far away and there will still be a hike to the car. You just won't be running with them because you'll arrive 2 hours later. The way that I would think as the silver tier would be something like premium economy. You get the little extra leg room, it's not a lot, but it's just enough that if you're 6 foot and above, you can survive the plane trip. Now we have gold. Here's the deal. A gold ticket and a silver ticket could almost be the same. But because gold has such a huge range in itself, it is hard to really put into an economy ticket. I went to a low-end gold in Austria 4 weeks ago, and that was the same as the silver in Belgium. Now we went to, I think it was T8 or T10, and we did have that hike I talked about. So that kind of fits in. However, the other end of gold is the extremely expensive ticket, the one that's at least €1,000 or above, where you do get to be in the grandstands, or where you do get to go out and experience all of that. So it's hard to draw them direct parallels, but let's continue with Belgium. In Belgium, if you get a gold, you will have a fixed seat. You will most likely not still have parking, or if you have parking, it's something that you have prepaid as a part of your ticket to get a certain area. With gold, you're typically also unlocking that food because you are that much closer to the main area, the main fan zone. There's one, should we say, tourist trap with the gold ticket, and that would be the grandstands. Now that sounds very confusing. Why are the most expensive tickets also kind of a tourist trap? Well, that's because the grid in the beginning and at the end of the race is amazing. Also, when you get to see the pit, and see the actual cars come in and get a pit stop, also something that I definitely want to see one time in my life. However, during the rest of the 90 minutes of the race, all you see is the fastest cars in the entire world drive at top speed. That is also cool, but you sure as hell don't know who is driving where and what's actually happening. The only way you know who's driving is by watching the TV. When you go to buy your tickets, make sure that in your view line, you will have a little square called TV. These huge live TVs that they shoot up so that you can follow the race during it. That will be maybe 70 rounds of 20 cars driving around. That's 1,400 cars driving around with upwards of 300 kilometers an hour. You won't know what's going on. So you're gonna have to watch TV for the expensive race that you traveled so far to watch. I feel like that sometimes disappoints people and friends when I tell them about it, but have that in your head before you go, and then you'll be perfectly fine. The gold ticket do have the opportunity to be the absolute best value for money, at least in my opinion. The gold, for example in Belgium, have an opportunity to be around a corner, or at least the Rouge, which is the highest elevation change in Formula 1. That means you get to see the cars do something unique. You get to see the fastest cars in the entire world with the most downforce in the entire world go around somewhere extremely fast. And you also get to see who's doing it while you get to see a screen. Now, this for me, the golden experience. Because in this case, you get to see the cars, you get to know who's driving, you get to see the actual television, you get to be close enough to the fan zone that you also get to participate in all the good food, all the concerts, just really like general life that's happening there in part of the festival. So for me, that's the best ticket for money. It is, however, €600 for just the ticket itself, and that is if you are buying it early. So going back to the airplane analogy, we have the bronze, that is the budget Ryanair ticket. We have the silver, that is with checked-in luggage, premium economy vibe. Then we have the gold, which is the same as the silver in some cases, but with also maybe a few added benefits. And that leads us to my recommendation/conclusion. See it like this. If you have the opportunity to go, I would say go for it. The only thing you need to adjust is either your budget or your attitude. And that's it.